Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are logging in today or watching the recording. Welcome to this month's Neovation Webinar. I'm Susan Harrell. It's my pleasure and privilege to produce and present these sessions with you and for you. And today we're going to be talking about using project management skills to elevate your custom learning projects. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Neovation, first-time attendees, we're an L&D company located in Manitoba, Canada. We have employees all across Canada and the US, but we're primarily Canadian-based and we work with clients everywhere. We can do anything that you need in terms of L&D, from custom e-learning, which is the department that Jesse works in, to various e-learning delivery platforms like Smarter U, and our new product is Joy Suite coming up. Let me just do my little plug on what Joy Suite actually is, because we know that AI is really transforming the future of L&D, and there's no getting around it. And there are so many tools that promise to help us, but there's only one, that would be Joy Suite, that's going to bring everything together for you, because its mission is to unlock knowledge so you can work smarter and learn faster. And it's truly empowered, sorry, by secure and powerful AI. So Joy Suite, let me take you on a little story. So imagine starting your day and all of your key files, whether it's from your Google Drive, OneDrive, or elsewhere, are waiting for you in one place, and that's in the Joy Suite Knowledge Center. Not just your docs, but all of your team-facing information throughout your company is there waiting for you to access it. You get a question, so instead of going to a search engine, you ask your knowledge assistant in Joy Suite, and immediately you get the answers that you need based on all of your internal documents and information, and it boosts your productivity on the spot because you're not wasting time searching and finding irrelevant information. And then, oh my goodness, there's a new policy or a product that's rolling in. So your knowledge coach can transform that information into an interactive conversational lesson tailored to you to make your learning fast, personal, and very sticky. Sticky learning is what we want. So Joy Suite is your personal mentor, helping you build your knowledge and your skills. And finally, the fourth part of Joy Suite is the scenario coach, which allows you to practice what you've learned, or it can help you prep for an upcoming conversation or a webinar like this one. So it's safe, realistic space that turns information into engaging discussions that build your confidence and reinforce knowledge. So you know that you know what you know. So with Joy Suite, with Joy Suite, you get answers, lessons, knowledge reinforcement, and skill building, all just a click away, in an all-powerful platform that turns everyday tasks into superpower moments. So we are going to be doing a webinar in December that gives you more information on Joy Suite. You can sign up for it there to discover how to unlock your team's potential to learn, grow, and thrive with Joy Suite. That is your promotional component of the webinar. So now on to today. So some housekeeping. We are recording this session, so you don't have to take notes, and we'll be sending out the recording within a day or so as soon as we get it rendered. And there's also a package of really great resources that Jess has put together for you. So please feel free to engage in the chat. We would love to see your questions as we go. There'll be some questions to keep it interactive. There will also be a survey at the end. It will open up once you close your browser window after the webinar. Please take the minute to answer the questions. There's only, I think, 7 of them. They're just click, go, really easy, but it helps us program more and better webinars for you, tell us how we can help. So it's my pleasure now to introduce the reason that you're all here, and that's to hear from Jess Paulson. She is a project manager for our custom e-learning division. And even though she and I don't work together on things very often because we're in different parts of the company, I have seen the impact that her project management wizardry has had on the custom learning team. And she is so passionate about making project management a human skill with heart that moves everything forward. So with that, Jess, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Over to you.
Thank you. All right, so Susan, I am sharing my screen right now, but I'm not seeing it below. I'm not sure if you can see my screen or not.
Yep, we can.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay. I've switched the slide. Can you see my new slide?
Yes.
Can
Yep,
everyone
you're
see
good.
that? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Hello, everyone. So as Susan mentioned, my name is Jessie, and I want to start out just by saying I'm so excited to be leading this webinar today. I've been working in project management for over 10 years now, primarily on creative and tech teams. I've earned my PMP certification back in 2021, and I've been working for Neovation for about 2.5 years. I sometimes like to refer to myself as the master of timelines and defender of budgets. So I'm really big on being extra organized, having clear communication, and finding more efficient ways to do things. I'm all about being 2 steps ahead so that the teams that I work on and lead have the ability to create and output some of their best work. So here at Neovation, I'm part of the custom learning team where I manage some of our client e-learning projects. And in addition to that, I also support and mentor our team on project management best practices, and I help shape some of our processes and procedures. I also lead our PM monthly discussions, which is where we dedicate time every single month to sit down as a team just to discuss how we could further improve our project management processes and how we work. So I always try to come into every new project or challenge with a goal to find win-win solutions where our clients get exactly what they need and everyone feels set up for success. I also try to keep things fun for our team and making sure we celebrate those wins, which is really, really important. And another fun fact about me is that when I'm not managing projects, you'll usually find me somewhere out on a river. I am a very avid fly fisher, even down to tying my own flies. I was actually a guest host on a fly fishing TV show here in Canada a couple years ago, and my episode still airs on a few channels once in a while. Anyways, I could probably spend the whole hour nerding out about both project management and fly fishing, but I know you did not come here today for casting tips. So let's dive into what you did come here for, which is some practical, real world strategies to help your projects run smoother from day one. So, what are we going to accomplish over the next hour? My main goal is to equip you with simple but effective project management habits so that your team can deliver their best training. This isn't just about getting things done faster either. It's really important for you to remember that this is really about creating a smooth process that removes frustrating roadblocks and reduces stress and rework for your team and frees up your team's energy so that they can focus on what they do best, which is building truly effective learning experiences. I've designed this session for teams out there who are creating amazing training content, but maybe you don't have a formal project management office or a project management professional like myself on speed dial. So whether you're a small scrappy team doing it all or maybe you're a specialized learning department like the one I work in within a bigger company, this session is for you. Today, we're going to be focusing on 5 key proven habits that I practice consistently already that I know will help you get a handle on your learning and development projects. And most importantly, my goal is for you to leave here with concrete, actionable steps that you can put into practice immediately right after this session. And I am seeing in the chat that my screen may be a little small, so I'm gonna shrink this. Let me know in the chat if my screen looks a little bit bigger for you all. Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, let's start out by talking about where do teams typically feel the most pain points on projects? We all love that moment when a brand new training course goes live and everything looks polished and perfect. It's such a major achievement. But we know the truth. Getting to the finish line can be a bit of a roller coaster. You and your team are often juggling everything from initial research and subject matter expert interviews to storyboarding, design, and endless review cycles all in between. It's a lot more complicated and complex than people outside of our world often think, and it's easy for things to get stuck or go off track along the way. So, I'm going to walk you through a few common pain points that I hear quite often. And as I walk through these, feel free to drop in the chat just to say which ones resonate with you. And I'll be watching the chat as we go. So, maybe, when those last minute vacation bookings come up or other company priorities get in the way, which puts an unexpected delay on the project timeline. Or how about those last minute urgent requests that come in right before a deadline, the ones that seem small but just end up derailing everything for you. And I'm sure we've all been stuck in those endless review cycles where nobody can seem to make a final decision. Or how about trying to get a final course approval, but you aren't quite sure who to ask because no one is taking ownership of approvals? And we've all had that nightmare of digging through emails, just trying to figure out which version of a file is the actual final version, all while juggling too many tools. So I'm just watching the chat right now, and these are some good things. Um, Definitely SMEs and content provided that isn't current and accurate. That's a good one. Everything under triple constraint, and definitely no clear owner and decider. And I like that, all of the above. So definitely relatable. So I'll give the chat a couple more minutes. Feel free to drop more in if you'd like. But I will say that the result of all these pain points is usually the same. Timelines slip, the scope of the project grows, budgets get blown, and worst of all, your team starts to burn out. So I'm here to reassure you that your journey to the finish line does not have to be nearly as frustrating or stressful. A few basic project management habits can really make all the difference. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves today, I want to answer the question, what is project management really? So for many people, the term project management has the same exciting appeal as a trip to the dentist. You might immediately picture soul-crushing spreadsheets, a Gantt chart that looks like a game of Tetris gone wrong, and processes with more confusing steps than assembling IKEA furniture in the dark. But here's the truth. Good project management isn't about adding complexity or slowing things down. It's about creating alignment and creating a clear path so that you and your team can move forward more efficiently, more easily, and potentially faster. So instead, I want you to sort of change your mindset and think about project management like being the conductor of an orchestra. You're not playing every instrument, but you're creating clarity and coordination so that the entire team can create something amazing together. Your job as a project manager is to lead your team in delivering a beautiful symphony. So when you boil it all down, our goal is simple: deliver the right thing at the right time and on budget, and setting everyone up for success along the way. And to achieve that goal, we need to focus on a few key things. So first is scope. What are we actually building and what are we not building? Time. What is our real deadline and what are the key tasks and milestones that we need to get there? Resources. Who's on the team and how will we talk to each other and keep each other and our stakeholders in the loop? And finally, budget. How are we tracking our costs and whether that's hard cash or just our own valuable time? So how do we take all of this and the idea of good project management and actually start to apply it? The answer isn't to adopt some massive complex system overnight. And in fact, I would highly recommend to not try that at all. Real change and success will come from small, consistent, and better project management habits that you and your team can build on over time. That's why I'm going to walk you through 5 simple, practical habits to get you started today. These habits don't require a huge budget or months of training or even a fancy PMP certification. They're just easy, repeatable actions designed to make an immediate impact for you and your team. And as I go through these, I really encourage you to just think about your current projects that you have going on right now on your teams and think about which of these habits really clicks with the challenges that you might be facing right now. Okay, so let me kick things off with a little story, and I have a feeling that this one might sound familiar. Have you ever had maybe your boss or your manager review a course build? It had all the bells and whistles, and just as you thought you were almost finished and ready to launch that course, they said something to you like, "This is great, but this isn't quite what we needed," or "This isn't quite what I was expecting." I've been there a few times early in my career, and I can tell you that's very frustrating and it's very deflating. As a project manager, you often wonder after that, where did we go so wrong? How did we get this far into this course build without someone raising a red flag so much earlier? And while it's tempting to get really frustrated and feel that, deflated, I've learned over time and from experience that this is precisely the moment where having a project charter saves the day. So this brings us to habit number 1, which is defining the goals, scope, and roles early. This is about setting expectations before any work even begins to provide a single source of clarity, alignment, and accountability. And you can easily do this by creating a simple project charter. Now, I don't want the formal name to scare you. This does not need to be a 20-page, complex, super fancy document. I want you to think of a project charter as your blueprint. So let's break down the key ingredients of an easy but clear project charter that you can create. First, you'll need to define project goals. So this is your why. Why are we doing this project at all? And for learning and development, the key question is, what should people be able to do after this training that they can't do now? Getting clear here gets everyone aligned on the purpose of the project. Next is laying out scope and deliverables. Be specific about what's included in this project, and just as importantly, what's not included. This helps manage expectations and prevent scope creep later on. Then you need to establish your success criteria, which is basically answering the question, how will we know if we actually succeeded? This is going to be what turns success from a vague feeling into something that you can clearly measure and track. And this is really key. So, for example, you might be thinking this statement, I want people to learn a lot. That statement is really fuzzy. What does a lot even mean, and how would you measure it? So instead, I recommend to get specific about success criteria and change that statement to something like, we want to see a 15% reduction in support tickets. With that statement, you've now got a concrete metric tied to a business goal. Next, you'll want to outline key milestones, tasks, and estimates. So just think of this as a high-level to-do list of all the major phases of your project, which could be something like storyboarding, course design, quality analysis, and then all the tasks in each of those phases that need to get done, along with some rough time estimates. You don't need to get super detailed with timelines, especially just yet, but just enough to show the shape of the work ahead. And we'll dive deeper into scheduling a little bit later. Here's another big one, which is roles and responsibilities. This answers the question, who's doing what? And clarifying this early prevents a lot of confusion, delays, and duplicated effort. I know that's a big pain point. Even a simple breakdown of who owns each project phase helps keep your team on track and avoids gaps. And then finally, this is the final step, the biggest one is getting the sign off. Assigned documents creates accountability and becomes a single source of truth that you can confidently go back to when challenges creep up. Now, remember that all of this doesn't have to be formal and fancy, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. You can create a project charter in a Word document, a Google Doc, Google Sheets. Just make sure that no matter what you use to create it, that it's saved in a common and easy to find spot for everyone on the project so that they can access and refer to it without having to dig to find answers. And here's something that can take your project planning to the next level. You can actually use AI tools. So if you're familiar with ChatGPT or Gemini, you can use that to help create your project charters a lot faster. So just simply prompt your AI chatbot of choice to generate a project charter template, and it will quickly lay out the framework for you. You can also use AI to review your draft. So try asking it to analyze your completed charter and point out any missing information or key sections that you may have overlooked. And if you are a bit new to using AI, don't worry. I have included a sample AI prompt in the resource document that you'll receive after this session to help get you started, as well as a basic project charter template. And before I go any further, just as a very quick reminder, always before using any AI tools in your daily work, please always be sure to check with your organization's policies, especially when it comes to handling confidential or sensitive information. So on that note, here on the custom learning team at Neovation, we've actually developed a project charter template that our project managers use for every single project, no exceptions. And it took time to refine, and we're always still improving on it. But once we found a version that worked, we committed to using it consistently. And that structure has been game changer. Our project managers don't have to reinvent the wheel for every new project, and that document always lives in a shared place where our clients and stakeholders can easily access it. Anyone on the project can jump in, find what they need, get up to speed fast. It really cuts down on a lot of rework and confusion. I can't emphasize that enough. And our projects start off aligned with everyone on the same page from day one. Okay, so let's move on to timelines. So I'm going to be really honest. Every single project that I have ever managed in my entire project management career, a timeline has never gone exactly according to the plan made from day one. And I'm not just talking about small one-day delays that pop up. I've led projects where a key team member came up to me and said, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, I'm taking a week vacation next week," right in the middle of a critical phase. And I've even had stakeholders who have suddenly needed a project finished weeks sooner than we originally agreed on. And that's the reality of project management. Life happens and things change. So, this is why the most successful project managers don't plan for a perfect, seamless timeline. They plan for reality. And that brings us to habit number 2, which is setting realistic timelines. So, I've put together a simple 3-step process to help you create better and more flexible project timelines. And I use this process myself all the time. First, to start with your final launch date and work backwards to create your base timeline. So, for example, if your course launch date is January 15th, work backwards from that date between then and now. It makes it a bit easier to work backwards because you're forced to fit into the work into the time that you actually have. Second, you need to stress test that timeline against the real world. And this is where you have to get brutally honest and ask some really tough questions. So, first, think about the people. Are your key decision makers really going to be available when you need them, or are they already swamped with other projects? Don't just hope for the best, actually confirm their availability. Next, be honest about your process. How long do review cycles actually take at your company, not just how long you wish they would? Are you using any new software, or are you working with a new vendor, or even just a brand new team member for the first time? Because that always adds a learning curve that you need to consider and factor more time in for. And then finally, look at the calendar. With the holiday season just around the corner, you have to expect that people are going to be taking extra time off around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then ask yourself, are there any other public holidays or team offsites or big company events that could completely derail your schedule? Factor those in now, not later. Finally, once you've mapped your timeline, you can add the final non-negotiable ingredient, which is the buffer. Now, I could scream this from the rooftops, which is a timeline without a buffer is just a wish list. I've said this in all like I said, in all my many years of doing this, I've never seen a project go exactly as planned. Something always happens. So think of it this way, a buffer is your project's insurance policy. It's going to give you the breathing room that reduces your team's stress and, most importantly, protects your deadline and the quality of work when unexpected things pop up. Now, you might be wondering, how much is a good amount of buffer to add? So, a good rule of thumb that I typically go with is 10 to 15% of your total timeline. So, for example, if a task is estimated to take 20 days, I would schedule it personally for 22 or 23. And if the project is 10 weeks long total, I would probably add another week to that. That small margin will be what saves you. So, with that in mind, I do want to share a quick story about this, how this habit has really paid off in practice for me. I recently led a large project to develop a brand new course series that was made up of multiple courses. It was built simultaneously with a lot of stakeholders. On top of that, the client had a firm, non-negotiable deadline. So to see if we could even meet that deadline, I just simply worked backwards from the client's deadline, factoring in holidays and vacation time, not only for my team, but also the client's team, as well as the buffer that I knew that we would need to be successful. This gave us a realistic, well-structured timeline showing exactly what needed to happen and when, including any non-negotiable milestones that I couldn't move. So having that clear picture up front allowed us to make very smart, strategic decisions, and I knew what to leave as is, what to shift, and where we could gain efficiency without sacrificing quality. That was a key thing. We did not want to sacrifice quality on that project. So using this method to create the timeline was really a game changer for me. All right, so let's move on to talk about the ghost kickoff. This is the kind of kickoff where a new project just sort of appears in your inbox as a forwarded email chain, maybe with a vague, FYI, you're on this now. And suddenly, everyone on your team is kind of working, but no one's quite sure what the real goal is, who's doing what, or even what's already been decided. And there tends to feel like a lot of confusion in the air. This is what brings us to habit number 3, which is running a real kickoff meeting. The goal here is simple. Get everyone aligned on the project charter and timeline before work begins. Hosting a kickoff meeting sets expectations and helps prevent misunderstandings down the line. And I do want to be clear about something. An email or chat thread full of attachments is not a project kickoff. A true kickoff is a live, real time meeting, and it's your best opportunity to replace assumptions with clear agreements. It's really going to help get everyone on your team, which that includes like your sponsors, your subject matter experts, your key contributors, all on the same page at the same time. And I also want to emphasize that everyone with a stake in the project should be attending that meeting. Now, here's the good news for you as the project manager. You don't need to build a new slide deck to prepare to run a kickoff meeting. You can use your project charter as your agenda. Oh, sorry, I see a question come in about buffer. Do you want me to keep going or pause on that? So what if the buffer doesn't work with the deadline? So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. I'm just going to go back to timelines. So this is a good question. When it comes to buffer with deadline, um, what I would recommend is, as I mentioned, when you're creating your timeline, start obviously working backwards after you factored everything in. There may be opportunity once you create your timeline to find efficiencies within there. So it may be a matter, as I mentioned, where you've set out your whole timeline, you have your normal processes and tasks in place, but it may be an opportunity where you have to decide, okay, is there any tasks that we can actually remove from our timeline so that we can still hit that deadline? So I'm hoping that answers that question. Let me know if there's any more questions on that as well. All right, sorry, just going back to our running a kickoff meeting. So again, the good news is you don't have to build a new slide deck to prepare and run your kickoff meeting. You can just use your project charter as your agenda. So first off, in your kickoff meeting, confirm the why and the what. Don't just read the goals and scope aloud. Pressure test them. Ask the room. Does everyone agree with this? Is there anything here unclear or making you nervous? This is the best chance to catch any misunderstandings. Next, verbally confirm the roles. So say names out loud in the meeting. So for example, okay, so just so we're all aligned, Sarah is our final approver and Mark is our lead subject matter expert. Saying these things out loud makes it real and it's going to erase any gray areas for your team. Then walk through the milestones, key tasks, and estimates. Give everyone a high-level overview of the major pieces of work, what needs to happen, in what general order, and roughly how long each piece might take. By doing this and saying this out loud in the meeting, you're making sure that everyone really understands the shape of the project and they can raise any red flags before you get too far in. Then make sure that you connect the dots on the timeline. Walk through the key milestones, but specifically call out dependencies. And that point is very key about calling out dependencies. This is really important because this is where projects often break down. So for example, you might want to say something like, I want to point out that the design team will not be able to proceed until Mark's content is approved by January 15th. So that's a good example of how to call out dependencies very clearly. Finally, agree on your rules of engagement. How will we communicate? Do we prefer using Slack or Teams chat? Is our check-in going to be a daily stand-up meeting or just a weekly email? Deciding this now prevents so much confusion and frustration later on. Oops, sorry, just one second. So this single meeting is one of the highest leverage things that you can do for both you and your team and can save you weeks of rework down the road. Plus, as the project manager, you're getting an opportunity to really read the room and make sure that no one has a look of panic on their face before you start to dive in. Now, if you really want to level up your project kickoff meetings with a slide deck, I recommend to definitely go for it. There is real value in having a visual guide. Here on the custom learning team, we actually have created a branded kickoff slide template that our project managers use for our projects. It is fully customizable, so we can easily tailor it by removing slides based on the needs of our project at the time. But really, in general, it's a great way to keep the meeting focused, professional, and consistent. Plus, it gives your kickoff that extra polish and it really sets the tone for the rest of the project. So I'm just watching for questions to make sure there wasn't any more on habit 3. All right, so let's talk about the part of a project that can make you want to pull your hair out, which is the feedback process and everything involved with gathering feedback during review cycles. So I have a story from early in my career that taught me a very good lesson the hard way, which was when I didn't establish clear feedback guidelines and expectations. I ended up with a stakeholder who was sending me an upwards of 10 separate emails every single day. This went on for a couple weeks. And each email had little bits and pieces of feedback on a design, and it was not a good situation. So at first, I thought, okay, I'll just tackle these emails one by one. But pretty soon, I was honestly drowning in my inbox, as you can imagine, and I was struggling to keep track of all the comments and making sure nothing slipped through the cracks. So I honestly felt like I completely lost control of that project, and it was really, really overwhelming. So again, this happened very early in my career. I owned up to that mistake and I also vowed to never let that happen again. That experience really opened up my eyes to how important it is to have a clear, structured approach to gathering feedback from the start of a project and how chaos can easily spiral and take over without it. So, this brings us to habit number 4, which is streamlining feedback loops. The goal here is simple: gather feedback in the clearest, most efficient way possible. So I've put together a couple strategies that I've picked up along the way that can help make a really big difference. So, strategy number 1 is to pick one place for feedback from day one. One of the easiest ways to reduce confusion is to choose a single place for all feedback. So, whether that's Google Docs, a review tool, if you use a tool like Review 360, or just something else. But please make sure that it's intuitive and easy for everyone to use. And once you've picked that tool, make sure that you're setting a clear rule. If feedback isn't in this tool, it doesn't count. Now, I know that can sound a little strict, but it is essential, especially when you're juggling multiple stakeholders and deadlines. I have had projects where we all agreed on a feedback method and then one or two people used something else. And in those cases, I did politely go back and ask them to transfer their comments into the tool we agreed on. And I explained why. That was really key, explaining why it mattered. Yes, it can feel a little bit awkward to have to go back and have those conversations with your team, but don't overthink it. As project managers, it's our job to maintain structure and ensure that everyone sticks to the process and ensures that things don't fall through the cracks. Strategy number 2 is to limit the number of reviewers. So keep your review group small and focused on key decision makers. You've probably heard the saying, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the broth, and that applies here too. So when too many people weigh in, feedback is going to start to get contradictory, priorities are going to start to blur, and it just becomes harder to move forward. Strategy number 3 is to name a feedback captain. So I recommend to designate one subject matter expert to lead feedback. Their role is to gather input from all of the subject matter experts, resolve conflicting comments, and make sure that one clear, consolidated set of changes or feedback is delivered to your team. This is going to help prevent your team from wasting so much time sorting through dozens of competing comments and opinions just to try to figure out what changes are actually required. Strategy number 4 is to give your deadlines some teeth. So make sure you're clear and firm about when feedback is due and explain the impact. So here's an example. Feedback is due by Friday at 5 p.m. Anything submitted after that won't make it into this launch, but it can be considered for a future launch. That statement sends a clear message. Deadlines aren't suggestions, they keep the project on track. So when people know that late feedback are not going to hold things up, they're going to be far more likely to prioritize the review and get it to you on time. And then finally, strategy number 5 is to stop file naming chaos. So this is a small habit, but it has a huge impact. Please make sure that you are creating a clean, consistent naming system with your team. So on our team on custom learning, we use a naming convention where we put like V1 or V2 at the end of our file names and so on as we create more versions. And if multiple versions start to pile up, move older ones into an archived folder. So create a separate folder within it called archived to move any older versions inside there to help keep the current version crystal clear. Also, keep all project files in one organized location because when everything's easy to find, your team is going to spend a lot less time digging for the latest drafts and more time actually getting things done. So I'm just looking for if there was any questions on this. Very much agree with everyone. So just as a reminder, these 5 strategies aren't about adding friction. They're really about respecting your team's time and talent. This is how you're going to bring sanity to the most chaotic part of a project. And more importantly, how you're going to get to reach that final and approved phase a lot faster with fewer delays, fewer headaches, and just a lot less back and forth. Okay, so for our final habit, let's talk about one word that can maybe make people a little bit uncomfortable, which is budget. So I know many of you here today might be a part of in-house teams, and you might be thinking, we don't really have a project budget because our projects are internal facing. So this might not really apply to us. Now, I want to mention that this is a big misconception in our field. This brings us to our final habit, which is tracking your budget early and often. Here's why this is so important for us, even if you're an in-house team. So if you're not hired by an outside client, you're still spending your company's single most valuable resource every single day, which is your team's time. Time is money. I could repeat that one a few times too. Time is money, and your team's time is the budget. And you would be surprised how quickly your organization can spend thousands of dollars on a project just in people hours. So, to get a clear picture of that investment, I recommend to start tracking these 3 things as you go, and they're pretty simple. So, first and most importantly is hours. Tracking the hours your team spends on a project is the only way to understand its true cost. This is going to be what transforms your value conversations with leadership once your project is finished. So, for example, instead of saying a project was a lot of work, you can say this onboarding e-learning course represents a 100-hour investment from our team, and it's now saving every new hour 5 hours in their first week and 5 more hours of a team leader's time. Do you see the difference between those 2 statements? That second statement is the language of business impact, and by tracking your hours, you'll have that data to back it up. Second, you'll want to track your tools and subscription costs. So this includes like any recurring subscriptions or extra tools that you pay for to complete your project, such as authoring tools, LMS tools, stock photo site licenses, just to name a few. And then finally, don't forget about your vendor and contractor costs. So if you hire a freelance voiceover artist, a graphic designer, or a video editor, those costs need to be logged as well. And you don't need a complex project management software system to track your time and costs. Now, I do see a question come in saying any time and effort tracking tools recommended. So you can use a simple shared spreadsheet where your team logs hours and expenses. That can work. So AI tools can also be incredibly helpful for building simple budget trackers as well. So for example, you can ask Gemini or ChatGPT to generate a table for you. This is really fast and efficient, and it can help you create a clear structure that's customized and tailored to your projects and what you want to track. And then you can drop that right into Excel or a Google Sheet. And to support with this, in the resource document that I have prepared for the end of this session, it does include a ready-to-use AI prompt to help generate a tracker for you like this, as well as basic budget tracking templates that I've created to help you hit the ground running. Now, I have worked on several major projects where tracking hours and budgets wasn't just helpful, it was essential for both the team and the organization. And over time, that data just became a very powerful resource. So, with accurate historical data, estimating future projects is just going to get a whole lot easier for you because you're no longer guessing, you're building on real insights from past work. You'll also start to see patterns. So, for example, you'll see some spots where your team maybe constantly spends more time than maybe even you expected, or where processes could be streamlined and tightened up. And that kind of visibility leads to a lot smarter decisions and continuous improvements on every new project moving forward. Now, before we dive into a real world example, I just want to quickly note that I only had time to cover 5 habits with you today, but there is a bonus 6th habit waiting for you in the resource document after this session. And here's a little hint. It is a simple daily practice that can really help you stay on top of your to-do list on your busiest days. So I do recommend to check that out afterwards. Okay, so we have covered 5 powerful habits, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's make this tangible with a quick case study to help see how they can make a difference. Let's pretend that you've been designated as a project manager for, say, creating a new employee onboarding course for your company. First, let's look at the all too familiar scenario, which is scenario A, the before picture, which is the one without these habits in place. So the project kicks off with a vague email from your HR director about creating a new employee onboarding course. There's no project charter, there's no kickoff meeting, the goals are fuzzy, and the team starts working on it with more questions than answers. And then, surprise, your key subject matter expert from the HR department is taking a month-long vacation to Europe and delivers their feedback 3 weeks late to you. And when their feedback does finally arrive in a messy email chain, it completely contradicts what the director casually mentioned to you in a meeting already, which in turn sends your team into a painful cycle of rework and frustration. So, the end result, the new onboarding course launches weeks late, your team is frustrated, burnt out, and the budget is completely blown. I see a lot of thumbs up. I can see this is familiar. Okay, so let's hit the rewind button and run that exact same project, but this time we're going to apply our 5 habits that we learned today. So first, you apply habit 1, where you you create a crisp 1-page project charter with the HR director. The goals, scope, tasks, and roles for this new onboarding module are now crystal clear. Next, you take that charter and use it as a guide to establish habit 2 by creating a realistic timeline. You've confirmed your team schedules, including that month-long vacation to Europe. You've built the plan around their availability, and you've added in some buffer. With your charter and timeline now ready, you now can execute habit number 3, which is hosting a proper kickoff meeting. You walk through the charter with the team, ensuring everyone is aligned and marching to the same direction from day 1. And then as the project progresses, you can use habit 4 to manage a streamlined feedback process. So the HR director has been deemed as the feedback captain, and all comments are going to be delivered through a Google Doc with a 48-hour deadline. And then finally, Throughout this entire process, you're practicing habit 5 by tracking your team's time in a simple shared spreadsheet. And then when your instructional designer needs an extra 2 days, kind of out of nowhere, to get their storyboard complete, just due to some other competing priorities, it's all good because you built in some buffer into your timeline, so you were able to easily see and move a couple other things around. So the result this time is a smoother process, an empowered team, and a high quality project that was delivered on time and on budget. So as you can see, project management really isn't a luxury. It's what allows your team to stop fighting fires and gives them the ability to focus on doing their best work. All right. So it's important to note that even with the best habits in place, you're still going to get pushback, sometimes from even the most like well-meaning managers and team members. And I would even bet that some of you attending today might be thinking some of these same things right now. So I do want to spend the last few minutes busting a few of the most common myths that you're going to hear or even feel yourself when you start implementing some of these project management habits. So the first myth: we just don't have time for all of this. So the reality is you don't have time not to do it. So yes, that 1 hour you invest in a project charter today might feel like a slowdown, but it's what prevents 10 hours of painful rework, redundant meetings, and utter frustration next week. Think of it as an upfront investment, one that will save you a lot of time and money in the long run. It's not a slowdown, it's a head start. Myth number 2: but we just don't have a project manager. So the reality is, project management is a function, not just a formal job title. You don't need someone with project manager in their business card. You just need a designated point person for the project. And I do want to mention that sometimes using the term point person instead of project manager can be a term that does feel more collaborative and less intimidating to your team. However, it is important to note that on any project, someone still needs to be accountable for clarifying the scope, tracking progress, and keeping the team aligned along the way. Just try to think of it not as a burden position, but more as a leadership opportunity instead. Anyone can truly raise their hands and say, I can be the point person on this one. And this simple act of naming a leader really helps empower your team, and it's going to ensure that the project has a clear champion driving it towards the finish line. Myth number 3 is our SMEs and stakeholders are always the bottleneck. I hear this one quite often. So the reality is stakeholders often become bottlenecks when we're passive. We can't control their schedule, but we can control how we engage them. So instead of waiting and blaming, try to be proactive and nurture your working relationships with everyone on the team, especially your SMEs and stakeholders. So, for example, when you give someone a clear deadline, make sure to explain the impact. So I'll give you an example statement. Hey, Susan, I need your feedback in by Friday at 5 p.m. Otherwise, the design team is going to be blocked and we'll have to extend the project timeline. In that example, I'm not nagging Susan, but I'm making her a partner in the project's success. I'm giving her the context that she needs to understand not only what I need her to do, but why it's important to get it done on time. And then myth number 4, which is the final myth, is this is pointless. We can't plan for everything anyways. So I hear this one quite often as well. And honestly, it's absolutely true. You can't plan for every single twist and turn. And as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, timelines never end up staying the exact same way from day one. But the reality is, a plan isn't a rigid script that you're locked into. It's more like using something like Google Maps. So think about it. When you're driving and hit a surprise road closure, Google Maps doesn't usually throw up its hands and say, I quit. It's going to reroute you. And project planning works in the same way. A good plan gives you the ideal route and the ability to adjust things when things change. So when that last minute change request comes in, you can then confidently say something along the lines of, sure, we can most definitely do that, but it will either add 2 days to the schedule, or alternatively, we can review the project scope and remove something else that might not be as essential for this launch. It's giving you the ability to make a smart, informed decision as a team, and that's what planning is really for. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground here today, but don't worry, you don't need to implement everything I've mentioned all at once. And as I mentioned earlier, I do not recommend doing that at all. So instead, here are my key takeaway recommendations. First, start small. Don't go back to your team and announce a massive process overhaul, because that's going to be the fastest way to trigger a lot of resistance, and it's going to overwhelm everyone on your team. Instead, start small. Pick one thing, just one habit or process tweak that addresses a real pain point that your team is feeling right now. Maybe it's as simple as creating a lightweight project charter before your next project kickoff. Or maybe it's just setting a clear 48-hour deadline for collecting feedback on the next round of feedback that you're waiting for. Just ask yourself, what's the smallest step that we can take that would give us the biggest instant relief right now? Because that's going to be where change starts. Second, be consistent. A single small win is a great start, but consistency is what's going to create that real lasting change. One great process won't make a difference if it only happens one time. So, when you do find something that works, please make sure to lock it in. So, for example, take an awesome project charter that you created and worked, save it as a template in your team's shared drive, and make it an official, non negotiable step in every future project moving forward. Make it the new standard. Consistency is what's going to turn that smart idea into a reliable system, and it's going to remove guesswork, it's going to set expectations, and over time, it's going to help create that rhythm that your team can trust, so that every project starts out on the right foot without reinventing the wheel. And finally, remember that project management is a muscle. So I do want to emphasize, project management is not a magic wand. And honestly, a lot of people treat and think of project managers like magicians, which I'd like to think of myself some days. But handing over a messy project is not going to instantly lead to clarity and flawless execution right off the bat. It's just not how project management works. So we're not magicians, we are builders. We don't conjure results, we create them. And what we bring are practical tools, proven habits, and simple systems that move teams from chaos to clarity. But here's the key: those tools only work when they're used consistently, as I mentioned, practiced over time, and supported by the whole team. So that's why I say project management really is more like a muscle. You don't build strength overnight. The first time that you create a project charter, it's probably going to feel awkward. And the first time that you hold a stakeholder accountable to a deadline, it's going to probably feel uncomfortable, and that's entirely normal. That's how growth happens. It takes repetition and intention, but I promise that with every project, every challenge, and every lesson, your team is going to get stronger. And once felt maybe forced or awkward, is going to just start to feel and become second nature. So don't aim for perfection, aim for progress, build habits, trust the process. Small and consistent efforts are going to lead to big results. So to make things easier for you, I've also put together a resource document, as I've been mentioning a few times. It does include a high-level summary of the 5 habits that I've covered today, plus that bonus 6th habit. You'll also find a couple of AI prompts to get you started with creating a project charter and a simple budget tracker, along with a few pre-made templates that I've created just to give you a head start. And as a bonus, an extra resource, I've included a few links to a couple free courses offered by the Project Management Institute that we highly recommend. So I just want to end off by saying it's been such a pleasure to get to chat with everyone today, and I hope that you were able to take away something new and inspiring from today's session that you can apply on your own projects and teams. And before I kind of open up the chat for more questions, if anyone has anything else, feel free to drop it in. I do just want to give you a quick reminder that our team is here to help if you need it. We understand the impact of well-structured e-learning, and we also know how challenging it can be to find the time, resources, or expertise to build it. That's where we on the custom learning team come in. So whether you need a simple, no fuss course or maybe a fully customized interactive e-learning experience that works seamlessly with any SCORM or XAPI compatible LMS, we've got you covered. So on this slide, I've just got a few of the project types that we can help support on. And just note that we are totally flexible based on what you need. So whether it's a bit of guidance, help with design, or full project support, we've got you covered. You just need to bring that subject matter expertise and we will handle the rest. And if you're not sure where to start, we do offer free consultations, no strings attached. So it's a chance to talk through your goals, get expert recommendations, and explore what's possible. So whether you have, a specific challenge or you just want to bounce around some ideas with an expert, we're totally here for that. We do these consults all the time, and they're a really great way to figure out next steps without any pressure. So I generally love for you to reach out and have that conversation. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So thank you again so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate your time and willingness to think about ways how to improve how your team works together. I know implementing change and new processes is not easy, but I promise if you start small, stay consistent, and keep practicing, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.